here at the Kitsap County Emergency Services Operations and Training Center, talking to Jan Glarum and Dave Rasmussen to learn how they're working to keep our communities safe from disasters and what simple steps you can take to protect your family and your neighborhood. Hi, Jan. Thank you for joining me on this episode of Commissioner's Corner.
Thanks for coming and visiting us.
My pleasure. To get us started, can you explain what the Department of Emergency Management does?
Absolutely. Part of our role, a big part of our role, is to lead and coordinate projects for mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery, to minimize the extent possible impacts of disasters on people, property, the environment, and the economy in Kitsap County. It's a big job. Part of how we do that is we'll be in our Emergency Operations Center, or EOC as we call it, should there be a disaster. And this really is the coordination hub where county department heads, other agencies, even volunteer organizations may send people. And this is how we coordinate the response to a disaster in Kitsap County. We're also the conduit to the state or federal resources, should we need them. You have a very big role as well, because we're going to be looking for people such as yourself, executives, to make policy decisions regarding allocation of resources and even financial constraints, should they be needed. And lastly, you may see protective actions needing to be taken by government personnel, by the public, and that's what we'll use our community warning system for.
So every year, it's my understanding that you plan for winter-related emergencies. Can you explain to us how this ties in with the department's year-round planning for less frequent or less predictable situations?
Absolutely. In our world, every day we're planning for a disaster that most people watch on TV, a movie. But we use events like extreme heat events, extreme cold events, atmospheric rivers, the recent bomb cyclone. Those are opportunities for us to practice for a disaster event. So we may stand up the Emergency Operations Center. We may develop what we call event action plans, and we'll bring in response partners and other department heads, and we'll talk about roles and responsibilities of how would we respond in a disaster should it get to that extent. Because nothing says that in the middle of a wind and flood event we just had that we couldn't have an earthquake, we couldn't have a chemical spill. So we need to be prepared for everything. And that's a great opportunity. So we use every day to plan and prepare and train.
All right. How confident are you in the department's ability to respond to an emergency or disaster?
I'm very confident in our ability to respond to a significant event in Kitsap County. That's what we train for. That's what our response partners do well every day. County departments know their roles. But it really is more than just our department. We have what I call 4 pillars that we think about. Public awareness. We have a full-time public educator. That's their role, is to help the public understand what are the risks and hazards living in Kitsap County. It's a great place to live, but there are risks and hazards every place. So public awareness is a big part of what we do. Another one is stakeholder readiness, or how prepared are our response communities. Day in and day out, they respond to emergencies and they do a wonderful job. We like to use special events. We like to use these weather events to plan for that larger one and bring those agencies together, again, discussing roles, responsibilities, and communication pathways. It's a huge activity. We also work to develop reasonable procedures in disasters. Obviously, there are budget constraints. There's hours in the day. We have to coordinate with so many different agencies, including state and federal partners. So we have to decide what's the right balance between the high probability, low consequence events and those low probability, high consequence events. So it's always a balancing act to try to figure out how much time to spend. Lastly, I think it's the interagency cooperation. Emergency management is all about relationships. And we work day in and day out with different departments within the county. We work with other agencies in the county. We work with cities. We work with the tribes daily. And that daily working together builds those relationships. So in times of disaster, we understand each other's capabilities. We understand how we're going to communicate. We understand at times that everybody may not get what they need, but they understand we're all working towards a common goal. But it's so much more than just what our department can do. Resiliency, in my mind, relies on what you and I both bring to the table. We have to have that understanding of what are we at risk of. we have to understand what are some simple steps I could take. For example, packing coffee. In case of emergency, you can make a warm cup of coffee. We need everybody to participate to really make the whole community more resilient.
Jan, thank you so much for joining me today on Commissioner's Corner and for your leadership in this department.
Thank you very much for coming to visit. Come back anytime.
And next, we're going to go talk with Dave Rasmussen to find out more about what individuals and families can do to protect ourselves. Hi, Dave. Thank you so much for being with me today on Commissioner's Corner.
Thanks, Commissioner. It's great to be here with you.
First, what is the difference between an emergency and a disaster?
Well, emergencies happen all the time. It may be a medical condition, it may be an auto collision, or it could be something where things just aren't working and attention is needed from some of our resources that are readily available to us 24/7, like our hospital, like our medical clinics, like law enforcement, like our fire and rescue team. All of those things happen on a regular basis, and it's really a great thing that we have such good resources here in the community. A disaster, on the other hand, is when those very resources become overwhelmed because the situation is much bigger and it affects more people. So when that happens, we go to work here at Emergency Management. We open our Emergency Operations Center. We coordinate with those different agencies that are responding to the incident, and sometimes we will then ask for additional resources from beyond our county. It may be at the state level, it may be federal resources, and we pull those together to support the needs of people at that time. We're also pushing out important safety messages to the community so they can know what to do to stay safe.
So what can individuals and families do to prepare for emergency or disaster?
Thank you for asking. Our hope is that on an ongoing and regular basis that families, organizations, and businesses will continue to take steps to prepare for both disasters and emergencies. The first thing someone needs to know is what are the hazards and vulnerabilities that we have here in this community. It starts with being ready for those conditions, whether it's going to mean we lose our power for a period of time, we can't cook and heat our home like we normally do, or it may mean the snowstorm creates hazards with travel, or it could be the winds blow down trees. So it could mean a number of different things. So knowing that that can happen gives us an understanding of what we have to do to be prepared. So in a winter storm, first thing we have to do is we have to stay warm. Now, if we have done those steps to be prepared for a winter event, we're really on our way to being prepared for a larger disaster. We're especially concerned about an earthquake. That would be the most impactful disaster that we could experience here in Kitsap County. One of the things we need to do is know what to do to stay safe, whether we're on the road or whether at work or we're at home. What do we have to do to stay safe in an earthquake? Well, if you're inside, drop down to the ground if you're physically able to do so. Cover your head and neck. Put yourself underneath a table or desk if possible. And then hold on to the leg of that table so that it doesn't move away from you. That's essential to staying safe while the earthquake is happening. So once that has happened, then you can start to shake off the dust and start to take care of yourself and those around you. Well, the way that you do that is that you've already stored up and gathered emergency supplies ahead of time. We are encouraging families and households to have 2 weeks of supplies on hand. That could mean a whole mix of different kinds of supplies, including our medicines, but it's especially important that people have both food and water. Now, we're especially mindful of the importance of water with the recent impact of a hurricane that brought flooding to Asheville, North Carolina. People did have food, but they very quickly ran out of clean drinking water. So that's a simple step that people can start to take to be ready for the next emergency or disaster. We want people to be thinking about their pets. We also have to remember that our pets need food and water as well. Additionally, we want people to learn first aid and CPR because you might be the one that steps in and helps a person in a medical emergency. And with that, we want people to know their neighbors. So if we know our neighbors and have that rapport and trust, then we can help each other in a crisis. All of these things together really make a difference in being prepared for an emergency or a disaster.
Well, that's all so important. What are some of the resources that the Department of Emergency Management provides, and where can the public learn more?
Great. Well, the one thing that I want everyone to do is to sign up for Kitsap Alert. That's our community warning system, and that's the way that we send out emergency notifications, things that people need to do to stay safe in a very localized situation or even something that affects the whole of our county, like an earthquake. So you can sign up for Kitsap Alert at our website. That is www.kitsapdem.com. And so you'll be able to see that and click that button, then you'll be on the registration page. You can sign up, and then you'll get those messages through your phone, but other channels as well. Secondly, follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, X, and Blue Sky. 5 or 6 days a week, we're putting out a safety tip so people will know how to be prepared for disasters. And we want people to always share what they're learning with those around them. We really want to be a resource. Oh, and invite us to come and be a guest speaker for your group or organization. You can request a speaker on our website as well.
Well, this is great. The Department of Emergency Management is such a great resource for the community, and I really appreciate you sharing what you know with all of us today.
Well, thank you.
Emergencies don't wait for us to be ready, but with the right planning, we can protect what matters most: our families, our neighbors, and our communities. A big thank you to Jan Glarum and Dave Rasmussen for sharing their expertise with us today. For more information, visit kitsapdem.com. To sign up for Kitsap Alert, follow the link on screen. Thanks for watching. Until next time, stay safe.